It's so therapeutic for kids to just feel heard, to watch their children look into their eyes, take notes, ask questions. Even if no solutions are in place, kids behave better when they feel understood. If that kid is throwing a tantrum saying, I don't want to go on the Zoom call, it's stupid, it's boring, I don't understand it, whatever, they might be a little bit more patient with the process if they feel like mom and dad really get that this is hard.
Hello, and thank you for joining me here on Hope to Recharge podcast, the podcast that's designed to break the stigma around mental health and to create some hope and inspiration and give some practical tips to those that are struggling with mental health, whether it's from personal stories to break the stigma or some advice from professionals in the mental health community. Whether you are struggling with mental health on your own or you know a loved one that is struggling, we are here to support you and to create a community so you know you are not alone. The road to recovery can be difficult and challenging. At Hope to Recharge, we believe that in mental health, together is always better. I'm your host, Matana. Thank you for joining me here today. Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com. Are you looking for online therapy? Are you stuck at home like everyone else? High stress, high anxiety, worried about the future, trying to navigate everything, have a lot of worries, have a lot of emotional roller coaster rides up and down, just like me. BetterHelp.com is one phone call away, one Zoom call away, one text away. It's an online platform for therapy. It's so perfect for now, for coronavirus, for what people are going through now. We can reach out and get the perfect therapist that meets our needs. Don't wait. Check them out. See if you can find somebody. Don't struggle. They're so affordable. They are so affordable. You're sitting at home. Every therapist is working online now. Reach out and get help you need. If you are struggling, don't struggle in silence. I am so grateful that they are giving us 10% off the first month so you can get affordable access to therapy. Go to betterhelp.com/hope to recharge. betterhelp.com/hope to recharge. Start your wellness, get help, get support you need. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me here today. We're having a little bit of a detour off of our usual plan in podcasting, and we decided to do a special edition of homeschooling, not homeschooling, crisis during Corona, because a lot of people are struggling. And when I say a lot, I'm saying myself in particular. And I said, I want to really deep dive into what is going wrong and how it went wrong and what can I do in order to stay focused and on my path of being mentally healthy during this crisis. And at the same time, that my kids should be healthy and educated as much as possible and come out of this crisis in a healthy mindset and also educated in a way. And I reached out to my good friend, Elisheva Liss, that is a educator, a therapist, a homeschooler, and a lovely person that speaks out loud about her passions in life. And one of her passions are education and how we have so many things that are going wrong nowadays in general in education. And now in particular, there's a lot that is so new to everyone. And by accident, it's coming out really hard for us to deal with. And I reached out to Elisheva and I said, Elisheva, please, can you give me an hour of your very precious time to educate me and educate so many people that are literally falling apart under this crisis of home non-schooling, but educating at home during this coronavirus. So thank you for joining me here, Elisheva.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Matana. Thanks for inviting me.
Before I go into my venting, I told Elisheva that I'm going to start with my venting about what I'm going through, which, by the way, I posted on a group yesterday of like 23,000 people about homeschooling. And I said, I want to know am I alone here? I'm working at home. My husband's working at home. My kids are at home. We're trying to stay calm and go from room to room to room, give my kids privacy that they can join their home Zoom classes and stay calm at the same time. And most of the people said, stay calm, ? Stay calm. Like, that's like, really? And I felt so validated that I was not alone. There was not one person out of a lot of answers, maybe over 100 or 200 people that answered and said, not one was, we're dealing with this. It's okay. So I really felt validated. Okay. It's not only me. I thought it was only me because I'm very low tech and I was freaking out. How am I going to do this? How am I going to privacy? I'm very into privacy and giving them place to focus, myself place to focus. And I was feeling really good about it. But before I go into my venting about what was not working, I want you to give my audience a little bit of a background about where that you were a teacher, how many years you were a teacher, an educator, and then your kids in the traditional school system, and what made you leave the school system to decide, you know what, we're going homeschooling the real way, not the way we are doing now during crisis. Elisheva homeschools her children the real way through the real system. And I want you to give them a little bit of a background why you decided to do that.
Sure. It's always tricky to summarize that because it was like a years long process, but I'm going to try my best to keep it brief. So I was a classroom teacher at the high school and college level. I was doing mostly adult education for about 10 years. And I loved education. I've always been passionate about learning. I enjoy it very much. But the thing that I loved most about educating people was really the relationships, the getting to know people, the helping navigate and counsel and translate knowledge into wisdom, translate information into applicability for people to really improve their lives. And finally, one time I was talking to my husband about it, and I was telling him I spent so much time outside the classroom talking to students, talking to families, brainstorming with people about real life issues. And I love doing that. He's like, you should just do that as a therapist. And it's something that had been on my mind. And that's where I segued my career into doing psychotherapy rather than classroom teaching. So I still besides for the fact that I'm still educating my own children, so I'm still a teacher, but I kind of have a pedagogic approach to doing psychotherapy. I kind of view it in a way as like helping people learn better ways to navigate their life situations. So in terms of my own children, they did, in fact, like you said, start out in our neighborhood, in our community. We do private schools, yeshivas, religious schools. And we sampled a few different schools because I'm sort of an educational idealist. I don't want to say perfectionist, but I have like a high standard of what my husband and I and my family, and I come from a family of educators who value good education. And we were sort of like shopping for the best possible package that we could find for our children, academically, socially, psychologically, emotionally, just like a really good package. And when I would speak to my friends, who are also moms, and some of them were teachers, and I would say, like, these are my concerns and these are the problems that I have, and these are what I wish I could see differently in the schools, they would say things like, well, you think you could do better? And I would think to myself, yeah, I do. I think I could do better, And at a certain point, I said, I discussed it with my husband. We did a lot of research. This is, again, summing up years worth of thinking and researching and praying and trying to figure this out. And we had a stint with one of our children that needed to be homeschooled for her own personal reasons for a little bit of time. So we got a taste of it. And then there was one summer that our children, usually in our neighborhood, kids go to some sort of day camp program when they're little in the summer. They didn't want to go to camp. And I said, no problem. Camp's not mandatory. And we created a sort of micro camp summer program in our home, like home camping, I guess. And it was such a wonderful summer. We ended up traveling a little bit, and it was just so delightful. They swam and they played ball, and we did learning, and we sang, and we went on outings. And it was just sort of like a taste, a microcosm of what homeschooling could and would turn out to be for us. And I know I'm painting a really beautiful picture, and it is a really beautiful picture. It's not perfect. We have difficult days, just like everybody has difficult days. But I don't think I've ever had a day or even an hour where I thought to myself, oh, this was the wrong choice, or I wish I could go back to sending them to school. There have been like no regrets. And I think if you were to ask my children, they would feel the same way. It's not perfect. We've had to self-correct and recalculate and troubleshoot different, pieces and variables along the way. But for our family, I'm not saying for everyone, for our family, it has been like a no-brainer. The only regret is, why did we not do this sooner? So thank God that's been fantastic for us.
Wow. So I didn't know that there was a regret about it. And I think that a measure of that's not one day that you say, did I make a mistake? That is a huge indication that you did the right thing. Now, as you said, it's not for everyone. I had many conversations with Elisheva. Should I homeschool? Should I quit the school system? I have so many hiccups and frustrations with the school system, but it's not their fault. It's just that I just feel sometimes that I don't fit. My maybe outlooks on life don't fit, but there's no one size fits all. And I know that after many conversations with Elisheva, for our family, it was, and for my children, I shouldn't say even my family, because it was really on our children base. I remember saying, like, the social part, my kids are so social. The negative points in school don't just justify, maybe the just is the why, justify me homeschooling them, that they will lose their social environment, which is so important to them. My question to you is, can you give us like 2 or 3 major points that you saw that you said, I'm not willing to continue in the school system because it's so important to you that you're willing to sacrifice whatever it was working for what was not working?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. I think it would be hard for me to answer that question because I don't really look at it that way. I don't look at it so much as we were running away from intolerable problems as much as, sometimes that's what people need to do. A child is really suffering and struggling and just not okay in a particular school or in schools in general. Because of that child's own needs. And then the parent can point and say, these are the problems that forced us to withdraw our child from school. For us, it was more of a family analysis process, journey, cost benefit, looking at different things. And it was a decision that we made with each child. So it wasn't like, oh, okay, we hate factor A about schools and therefore we're going to run away from it. It's more sort of like looking at the big picture. I don't think we sacrificed a whole lot. That we didn't kind of pull everybody out all at once. One thing I always reinforce to people when I talk about homeschooling, we started out in the regular schools. And once your kid is in a regular school, I don't think, barring some exceptional circumstances, I don't think it's ever in a child's best interest, or rarely in a child's best interest, to say, we're forcing you out of school, you have to come homeschool now. I think it has to be a collaborative decision, because if you force a child to homeschool who prefers to be in school, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough on the kid. It's going to be tough on the parent-child relationship. It has to be something that either a child wants to do, or that was started from the beginning, or that there's no alternative. Like, meaning if the schools say we can't serve your child, then you have to do it because there's no alternative. But in our case, it was more, some of my kids really didn't like school. They didn't like being there, which is interesting because they were academically fine. It wasn't like they had, they didn't have learning disabilities. It wasn't that they couldn't perform in school. And thank God they didn't have social issues either. They had friends, but they just didn't like the framework and the structure and the rules of the school lifestyle. And what was very interesting was, a lot of times kids don't want to do what they have to do. They might not be in the mood to take a shower. They may not be in the mood to eat dinner or whatever. There's a lot of things that kids just have to do to be a decent human being. But the things that they didn't, and tough luck, but the things that they didn't like about school were the things that I also didn't like about school. And so as we were having these conversations, and the particular schools that some of my kids had been in, some, like every family, I think we had some educators that we worked with that were, magnificent at what they do, caring and really their hearts in the right places and gave a lot of time and focus and talent. But also we had some experiences that were incredibly frustrating and tone deaf and damaging. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say, in terms of the way some of these, educators, I wouldn't even necessarily call them all educators. They certainly weren't all qualified to be educators, engaged with children and families. And so that was also something that becomes very frustrating if it happens repeatedly. But again, that wasn't really ultimately what drove this. It was just, speaking to people and saying, well, I wish they could do this more, or I wish they didn't have to do that. And people would say like, well, that's just how it is. I'll give you a silly example. This is not an important example, but it's a classic example of systemic education versus customized education. So kids will very often get in trouble for coming late to school, right? The vast majority of the time, at least in my schools, in our community, it's not up to the child what time they get to school. They're in a carpool. There's an adult driving the carpool, right? If the adult's running late, then the kid's running late. It's not, the kid could be up and ready and dressed and with a coat on, but the kid will get shamed and humiliated and penalized for somebody else's parent not getting their act together on time, right? Okay. Or a school bus not coming on time. And so then you call the school and you say, hey, listen, my kid got in trouble and ended up missing a whole first period because they were busy getting in trouble for the 10 minutes that they were running late. That wasn't their fault in the first place. And I'm not saying all schools do this, but it's happened to us with more than one. And they would be like, well, listen, they have to be in school on time. Like, right. Okay. Collaborate with me. Do you want to provide busing? Like, let's figure it out. I got to work so I can make money to pay your children's tuition. Right. So I'm not a car service. Like, right. And so there was like a certain lack of collaboration. Now, again, do they mean to be unreasonable and frustrating? No, of course not. They also have work to do, and they also have things that they can't be bothered with and busy with. But that's the point. That's the point. When you're mass producing, when you're manufacturing, like assembly line dialed children, you don't have the luxury to attend to these little details. But, a kid, especially a sensitive kid who wants to please, who wants to do well, is showing up to school late through no fault of his or her own, and then starting the day on the wrong foot, feeling shamed, humiliated, and blamed for something that's entirely not their fault. And that happens every day,
all the time,
all the time. And things like that happen all the time. Again, like, so take a 7-year-old kid who didn't complete their homework. I promise you the vast majority of 7-year-olds are not in charge of completing their homework, right? If a kid didn't do their homework at the age of 7, it's because mom and dad were too busy to make sure that the kid got their homework done, right?
Or they didn't care. Or they didn't care, like me, but sometimes.
Right, okay, right, for whatever reason,
No.
mom and dad didn't get it done.
Right.
They didn't get it done. But we're shaming little 7-year-olds, right, for not having parents that felt that for whatever reason that we're going to force homework getting done. Right. So, and their buddy is getting celebrated for having parents that were going to make sure, and so the kind of emotional feedback that children get at school, and that's just one little example of things that happen in school. And that we didn't even touch bullying, we didn't even touch differentiated learning, we didn't even touch the lack of physical movement and creativity and the arts that there's so many things that are missing from the school systems. I don't think anybody would disagree that the general school system, public and private, is more broken than wonderful, right?
Right.
And again, I don't want to take away, like you said,
exactly.
I don't want to take away from the empathy.
It's not bashing, It's not bashing them. Every single thing that you said, I related to every single thing. And as you were talking, my list got longer and longer because we suppress things that we don't really have ways to deal with, and we just give in to them. And I'm in the school system now, and I am so beyond grateful to so many of my kids' mentors and educators that are their mentors for life. And one of my reasons of not homeschooling is because I have so much gratitude to their mentors and their leaderships that they found that were working, but there were some that were not working, and that we need to put kids into therapy and deal with it. And it's such a fine balance. But you're right. We are not bashing. It's not. There's no one person to fault. It's just a systematic flaw that's not working out 100%. And I just wanted to give the audience a picture of why you decided that this is great for your family. And I think your family is a perfect example who it fits, because you're all extremely bright and you love knowledge. You're not looking to cut class. You're not the type of family or kids or parents that are looking to get a freebie. Far from that. You're very educated. Your kids are super successful and bright and remarkable humans, really remarkable. And
thank you.
And in a way, you're lucky because it really works for you, and you're very patient, and it really works for you. So you're lucky in a way, and you're also very driven to do the right thing. You're like, I'll go through some, like, I remember when you decided to do it, and a lot of people were like, really, you're going to do that? You're going to do that? And there was a lot of peer pressure from good friends. What is that normal? Is that you're crazy? I remember this so clearly, and I was so inspired and proud of your core belief that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm not going to let the background noise of people that I'm close to that are doubting myself and doubting what I'm doing for my children. So I admire that in you, and that's why I reached out to you. I know a lot of people that are homeschooling parents, but I felt like you do it from such a sincere, educated point of view, not out of running away. As you said it so nicely, I wasn't running away. I was creating a better environment for my family. So now that my audience understands that where you're coming from and how much background research you did before you went into the homeschooling, I think the audience will really appreciate every word that comes out of your mouth now, because they know that you tried it both, and besides the fact that you're an educator and a therapist, so you have all the aspects: a mom, an educator, a therapist, and a homeschool person, and someone that loves education. I think if I think of Elisheva and her joy in life is sitting by the beach with a book.
That's exactly right. The beach and a book, exactly.
A beach and a book. Like, give me the beautiful scenery, but I'm not going to just sit there. I'm going to educate myself. Give me some knowledge.
Learning in nature.
Always learning. So now that we know a little bit about you, I want to go into what's going on inside my life that people will relate to. I'm sure people will relate to. So before Corona, we had our schedules very planned out. Mommy and daddy work or don't work, depends on the day. Kids go to school. There's the carpool list, the carpools and the buses and the schedules and the shopping time, and everything was in a cube of a time. Then Corona comes around, and we have to adjust ourselves to, first of all, the kids are home. Okay, fine, the kids are home. we're all at home. Fine. The first thing was, let's stay physically safe and mentally safe. Physically and mentally. Now, there is so much going on around with fear. The news doesn't stop coming. How many people died in our community? How many people are hospitalized? Pray for this one. The lists, the different groups that we're starting on WhatsApp and Facebook, and then school chat starts coming along. Okay, what's with school? What's going to be? What's the teacher saying? What's the principal saying? The unknown. We get through the holidays, and then they tell us that we're going to start educating our children through online education. Let's give a little bit of a background. Our schools are very into no technology in the house. There is no technology in the house for children. So I have a computer. My husband has a computer for work. Only my oldest son has a phone. The rest of the children, 4 others, do not have a phone, do not have a device, do not even really, my kids don't know how to use a computer. Wow. My kids are not allowed to touch our computer. If they need something, we go with them. It's not like they know how to navigate through technology. My baby has a tablet that only has specific videos on it. We're like, he's not a kid that can sit in front of a video for a long time. My kids love the outdoors. They love interaction. They love people. They love doing. And then we're told, make sure you have enough devices for everyone. If not, we'll provide devices and we'll send them to you. And you're going to have to learn with us how to use the devices. Make sure these are the times. These are the 1,000 emails that we're going to send you for each kid. I don't even know the emails, who the teachers are, because each email is from a different name that I don't
streamlined.
I don't even know. I don't recognize. I'm like, whose teacher is this? I'm trying to figure out from the material who it's for. Besides the fact that sometimes I don't go through all the emails. Thank God my daughter Javi was helping me, because she's super sweet and kind and loving, and she saw how overwhelmed I was. I said, Javi, please go for the emails, separated by child, by what they need, print it out, talk about 500 sheets of paper that I had to run out to buy during crisis mode to print out all this stuff. I really was, I felt like the walls were closing in on me, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? Every kid needs their own room. Every kid needs their quiet. Every kid is on and off on a different hour. And in the meantime, I needed to clear my calendar for a month. I needed to cancel appointments, cancel meetings, cancel stuff, and readjust my calendar to adjust it to be able to be my child's educator, to be on top of what they are learning. Besides the fact that some of my kids were hating the online Zoom calls because it was so noisy. Now, I'm not here to blame anyone. I don't think there's anyone to really blame.
They're doing what they can. They're trying to help you. Yeah.
Right.
Did you see the blog post that I wrote about a sample letter for parents to send to their kids' schools?
If you sent that before Passover, right?
I think so. I have it up on my screen. Should I summarize it?
Yeah. Do you want to read it out?
Yeah, I can just read it out even.
Yeah, read it out.
Yeah. So this is the blog post that I keep hearing from colleagues and friends and readers and clients that are parents, and also from teachers, that people are struggling with this current schooling situation, with the new obligation to not only have your kids around all the time, and enforce all the new strict health and distancing measures, dealing with all the anxiety that involves, and juggling parent working schedules, etc., but also comply with the school's attempts to translate classroom learning into distance learning. And it's really not going well. So we're a homeschooling family. It hasn't really affected our learning routine because we're used to doing the homeschooling. But what I had worked on with some of my clients and friends is the following letter to be adapted as appropriately. Dear school administrators, thank you so much for everything that you do for our children and the community. Thank you specifically for trying to preserve a modified daily learning program for our children. We understand that this crisis has caught everyone relatively off guard, with schools as much as parents. Your dedication to our education is beautiful. We as parents and or teachers, because this is for teachers to say also, are also scrambling to regroup around this new abnormal normal. Our children are scared and confused, and sometimes we are too. We hear alarming, conflicting news and get calls to pray for the sick constantly. Some of us are trying to work, losing money, worrying about jobs and businesses. We are trying to prepare for that. This is before the holiday, while enforcing social distancing and hand washing and errands. None of us knows exactly how long this will last, the situation or our physical and mental health. Everything feels shaky and unstable right now, but we are trying to muster faith and be strong for our kids and capable. We are praying. We're trying to stay as calm and focused as we can while trying to take care of our family's basic physical and emotional needs. We appreciate, in theory, the fact that you, the teachers, are sending us Zoom calls, conference calls, assignments, emails. We surely don't have the experience or the immediate material to create curricula from scratch ourselves. Yet trying to get each child to sit nicely in a quiet enough spot, find enough phones or devices for them to all participate at very specific times, and then insisting that they follow up with assignments is proving to be very stressful for parents and kids alike. In some cases, this is unrealistic or even impossible. Right now, our priorities are matters like medical and mental health. And while education is generally a premium value for us, we feel that currently we need to focus on educating the kids to just manage this new situation with resilience rather than keeping up with specific academics. Ultimately, we are trying to raise children who will be able to navigate life situations with integrity, maturity, and grace. For many of us, that itself needs to be the full-time endeavor right now. So we are requesting that you reassess the distance learning program, perhaps just by making it optional for the students and teachers. Meaning that's the only difference. Just keep sending all the same stuff, but say, if you can do this, great. And if not, don't worry, just take care of your families. So that the ones for whom it provides comfort, structure, and stimulation could still enjoy those benefits, because there are families that are enjoying it. But for the ones for whom it compounds an already incredibly difficult situation, this could alleviate some of the extra distress and overwhelm. Thank you for always being attuned to the needs of our families and community, fervently praying for an end to this pandemic and the ability to resume the blessings of our regular life and learning. Respectfully and gratefully, and then your names. And so the tone, right? You hear the
Elisheva. First of all, another thing, Elisheva is a writer, a phenomenal writer. And it comes to her like, I don't know, like we think about a sentence we want to say. She just thinks about how we can express ourselves so well. And this is exactly what so many people wanted to say, but they didn't know how to. So she just said, you know what, let me write a letter and you can all send it out and adjust it completely to you, what you want to say. And thank you, Elisheva. That was so perfectly.
Like you express the gratitude, the appreciation, the empathy, the understanding that like, hey, we get it. You schools are really turning yourselves into a pretzel to try to serve us. You know, and the way in which it's not working is no one's specific fault. There's no malice. There's no laziness or hostility. It's just the situation is so, unpredictable and atypical. And I also attached a little, like a poem that I had written on this topic. It's on this blog. So if anybody wants to just adapt the text from that blog and then send like a variation of it and then add whatever is relevant to your family, please feel free. I specifically wrote it for that purpose. Like there's no copyright here. Just enjoy, use it to start conversations with your school. The poem goes like this. What if we covered a little less math and instead teach kids what really counts? Less social studies and more social skills. Less biology, more health and wellness. Less chemistry and more communication. Less physics and more physical activity. Less literature, more loving kindness. Less political science and more personal growth. Less civics and government, more social responsibility. Less computing and more compassion. Less language and more laughter. Less studying for tests and more resilience for life tests. Less competition and more collaboration. Less information and more inspiration. Less cramming and more creativity. Less pressure and more pleasure. Less about grades and more about giving. This is an opportunity for families to learn what actually matters.
Oh, I have tears. Oh my God, Elisheva. Why did I not see this one?
It's on my blog. If you go on elishevaliss.com, that particular article that has the sample letter and that little poem is called Distance Learning During the Coronavirus Crisis. It was written on March 23rd.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
Yes. Another one that sure, thanks. And another one that I want to highlight, because I think this will also help families sort of like organize their focus and priority, is I created I created a top 10 list of priorities for families right now. Number one, from most important to least, is
1 second. I would just want to ask you: is this as an educator, as a mother, or as a therapist?
As parents. Okay. So I'm speaking as I have all the hats. So and because I can write, I do well with the words. But I'm speaking. The beauty of having an integrated approach as a homeschooling parent is that I can utilize my knowledge as an educator, as a mental health professional, and as a mom, and as a person of faith. I pray a lot about this stuff because we don't know everything, no matter how educated we are. So I don't pretend to know everything or have all the answers. I'm figuring this out just like everyone else, but I have a little bit more background than your average parent. So you'll hear it's pretty universal what I'm about to read you. Okay. So priority number one, the medical safety of your family and everyone else, the community and the general public, right? That's number one, right? We just have to keep people as safe as possible and follow whatever guidelines we can try to follow. Number two, basic necessities, food, toiletries, hygiene, household supplies. For many people, that's not a given, right? We have to take care of our families' needs, get what they need, and also make sure that the people that we have the opportunity to provide for are also being taken care of. Much more important. Number 3, psychological safety of the family and anyone else for whom we're responsible, right? People are panicking. People are having anxiety attacks. People who never had mental health issues are developing mental health issues because this is a crisis. Number 4, the emotional well-being of the family. This is a subtle difference. Psychological well-being and emotional are a little bit different. People use them interchangeably, but people could be okay psychologically from a clinical perspective, but also be struggling emotionally. So the kid who's not developing anxiety or depression, but is feeling like a little bored, a little understimulated, a little missing their friends or whatever, we want to attend to that and make sure that they have creative and social substitute outlets so that they don't get to the point of psychological distress. The next, number 5, is functionality, the way the family runs and functions, systems that work for each family and family member, not imposed or dictated by external organizations or institutions, but to sit down with, if there are 2 parents, two adults in the home and the family and say, okay, guys, this is a new situation. What do we need? What can we do? Brainstorm. I have a whole article on family meetings, creating family meetings for people to be heard and share ideas and brainstorm. Next one, number 6, is making money, right? This is important. People need to figure out how we're going to work, right? Because if people are used to even a single income family, certainly double income families, we have to regroup around this reality. That's also a priority. Number 7 is creative and contributive outlets, right? It's not all about just things that have to get done. Once that gets done, it would be so nice to be able to enjoy the music, the art, the physical activity, volunteerism when possible, helping out in ways that we can, right? Number 8 is social connections, keeping up with family and friends through video calling and regular calling so that we maintain those important relationships, also so critical. Number 9, educational stimulation according to individual needs and interests. So I don't mean academic responsibilities. I mean just keeping your brain sharp, reading, learning, asking questions. Doing things that are educational rather than just sort of brain junk. And number 10 is entertainment and recreation. Have fun, play games, watch things just for the fun of it. You know what I didn't put on that list? Homework assignments, Zoom calls that are pretending to be classrooms, because that's not a priority right now. Not even a little. If the kids enjoy it, amazing. Get the teacher a mug,
or send them pizza for their children. The educators, I spoke to
They're struggling too.
Yeah, they have children. They have to attend to them.
They're juggling terribly. Yes.
I feel so bad for them that they have to do all this.
Yes. And by the way, I've counseled friends and colleagues and clients who are teachers. And I told them, I created a letter for them to write to their employers saying, listen, we want to be team players. We want to help out. We want to do our best we can, but this is not the job I signed up for.
Exactly. The words I told one of the teachers this morning. I said, you signed up to come to class.
They have babysitters in their houses, and send their children to other schools.
Or to see 20 smiley faces in front of them, not through a pop-up, keep on changing screen and babies in the background screaming from the families. This is not what you signed up for. Right.
Yes. This is not real schooling and it's not homeschooling. It's neither. I'm calling it school homing, when the schools the homes are being taken over by an ad hoc, crisis version of school. And again, not to blame the educators. They are trying their best. But just because someone's trying their best doesn't give them the right to destroy your family's peace of mind.
Right. Absolutely.
They could be trying their best and mean so well, but if it's bringing a bulldozer into your house and wreaking havoc on your family's functioning or mental well-being, then it needs to be put to the side. So the first thing that I recommend to parents is strategize with your partner. Sit down with your spouse and say, okay, what is working and what is not? If your child is old enough to be part of the conversation, bring the child in, take a pen and paper. And I have another article on family meetings. Children, it's so therapeutic for kids to just feel heard, to watch their children look into their eyes, take notes, ask questions. Even if no solutions are in place, kids behave better when they feel understood. And so if that kid is throwing a tantrum saying, I don't want to go on the Zoom call, it's stupid, it's boring, I don't understand it, whatever, they might be a little bit more patient with the process if they feel like mom and dad really get that this is hard. And if it's in their best interest, it might not even be in their best interest to keep going with it, right? One thing we've been asking a lot of schools to do, instead of doing the Zoom calls where they have to be at a certain place at a certain time, ask the teacher to just record a video at his or her own convenience. Let them do it at a time that works for them, and then send the video for the kids to watch at the parents' convenience. Why do we have to drive everyone nuts to be at a certain place at a certain time? Right. So, and again, none of these is perfect, but just thinking a little bit out of the box, I think a lot of this. So collaborating with your own family first to figure out what's working and what's not and what we need. One thing that I love as a piece of relationship advice is, this is not my own idea. I got it from another therapist, called turn your complaints into requests. So instead of complaining and feeling frustrated and negative, say, you know what, what do I want to happen instead? Not, okay, I hate this. It's like, I would prefer that. And then focus on what we can actually do to create that change. So, and that's a wonderful way to approach, any relationship.
Anything. I wanted to say that's what they teach you in any relationship.
In DBT, yes, exactly. Yes. I actually know it as a couples therapist.
Right, exactly. If someone went to couples therapy, they know that. And I could say that I was smiling because I said that's one of the things they teach you. Don't turn it into complaint, turn it into suggestion.
Say what you need, express your needs. Yes, right. Exactly. So first figure out with your spouse and your children, what are our needs? Then once you have clarity on what's working and what's not, figure out what you want to try to implement differently. If it's something that you can do within your own home system, great. If it's something that you're going to need collaboration and cooperation on the part of the school or friends or family, whatever, then try to reach out to the people that can do that. Right. If plenty of schools are happy to collaborate and cooperate and hear parental input. And when that happens, it's magnificent. Right. If the schools are not able to do that, if it's too big, if they're too overwhelmed, if there are not enough families that feel the same, whatever reason they can't, play ball with you, then what you need to do is make a difficult decision and sort of say, listen, again, we love and appreciate the fact that you're trying to serve us, but it's not serving us right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you can either say, like I did this once to a school. I said, listen, my son is enjoying the Judaic studies part of the program. The secular studies part is not working for us. And so we're going to be homeschooling him for secular. And the school said, well, we don't do that. You can't pull out for half a day. And I said, okay, well then we're pulling him out for the whole program. And they're like, oh, actually, no, he could stay for the Judaic studies.
Did that really happen?
It did. Yes.
Oh, wow. And you weren't joking. You weren't.
Oh no, I wasn't bluffing. Yeah. No, I meant.
Yeah, you weren't.
And they knew it.
You were ready.
And I have to give this school credit. Not only that, they actually adjusted the tuition. We didn't even ask. They adjusted the tuition. They didn't try. I give them credit. Yes. Yeah. So I think having the confidence and the clarity and the peace of mind and the respect to advocate for your child in an unwavering way and say, listen, thank you for what you're offering, but it's not the right product for my child. Thanks for that lunch, but we're allergic. We can't have it,
Thank you for that lunch, but we're allergic. That is so perfect. Oh my God. We get panic attack when we're
right. We break out in hives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So being able to first develop the clarity within your own family as to what is working, what isn't, what do we think that we need? And we may need to adjust course as we go along.
Right.
And the same way, if your kid has a flu, you write a note to the teacher saying, my kid has a flu. He's not going to be able to do his book report. Right. Here you're saying my kid has a pandemic. He's not going to be able to do his Zoom call.
Right. Or the homework or the assignment or
whatever. Yes. Whatever fill in the blank to what's not working. Right. Hopefully the teacher or the administrators will be, collaborative. If they won't or they can't for whatever reason, then it's our jobs as the parent to say, I need to protect my child from dysfunction. So if when there's dysfunction in the big wide world, then I need to regroup. And that was part of our homeschooling process, is figuring out in the big picture of what's being offered there versus what we can offer here. This was a better package. So we opted for the better package. We made a logical choice. And what I've also been recommending to people is that, I can't speak on behalf of schools, but if I'm a sincere school administrator with a good heart and with integrity, and a parent comes to me and says, this is not working for me, I'm going to be legally homeschooling my child for the next 2 months, and God willing, come September, I hope everything will be okay, and we will take responsibility to catch up anything that they missed. I can't imagine any school would penalize a parent for doing that.
But can you do that?
Yeah, sure. You can. But
it's not the same. It's not the same schedule, is it?
Well, the beauty of homeschooling is you make the schedule however you want. So if you say to let's say you said to your daughter's school, right? You said, my child this isn't working for us, right? It's now the end of April. So I'm going to submit a letter of intent to my district saying, we, the Jacobs, intend to homeschool our child, whatever. That's the legality. It's not that hard. Mm-hmm. And you tell the school, you are no longer responsible for my child's education for the next 2 months, right? And then you do whatever education you want to do with this child. If she wants to just do piano lessons for the next 2 months, then she can do piano lessons for the next 2 months,
in real life, homeschooling works?
No. And I was joking. That's not really legal. But in the middle of a pandemic, I don't think anyone would give you a hard time for it. Because everyone understands, including the boards of education, this is such extenuating circumstances. And you know what? So it's the same. If God forbid somebody's child is in a psych ward, nobody's getting mad at them because they didn't finish the math curriculum. They just want to keep that kid's head above water. We have to again prioritize. So you do as best you can with some form of homeschooling, which could be, using some workbooks, using some online, Khan Academy type of stuff. There's so many free, fantastic resources that you can utilize in a minimalist way. Honestly, let's say a kid had surgery, right? A kid who missed the last 2 months of school, a reasonably intelligent kid, student, missed the last 2 months of school for medical reasons. When they come back in September, I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about up to middle school, right? Up to like 6th or 7th grade. They probably wouldn't miss a beat. They could probably restart in September and not have to do a whole lot of catch up in the summer, because there's so much repetition and cyclical learning that happens that to miss a couple of months and just do it your own way, in a minimal way, or in a way that's just, more enjoyable to get through this pandemic, if that's what you need. Meaning, I'm not saying you should use this as a free pass to just not do any learning at all, or not to utilize the school's resources. But to sort of say, we're going to view this as optional, and to sort of say to the school, listen, this isn't working for us right now. We're going to try the best we can, but we're viewing it as optional. We're calling ourselves homeschoolers. You're not responsible for my child's performance on the ELA at the end of the year, which I don't even think anybody's giving. And then come September, if they are behind, I promise to take responsibility for any catch-up tutoring that they almost definitely won't need.
You really believe that they won't need?
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, a student who has been up to par for the most part until that point, I don't think they would need it. Until
even in high school?
No, I said until about middle school.
Okay.
No, in high school, actually, at least in New York, they've done a brilliant thing. They got rid of the Regents exams. They got rid of them. They understand that it is completely unrealistic. These last 2.5 months of the academic calendar are usually spent cramming. They're usually spent doing all the review, all the last minute difficulties, all the ironing out. Nobody's able to do that now. And so they recognize that, and they're being realistic. And they're saying that, the last 2 units of chemistry are not more important than everybody's mental health, and so they're re-standardizing the educational expectations for most of, at least in New York, because New York is a huge crisis center for, I know your listener, your audience is everywhere, but you and I both are from New York, and a lot of, but the truth is, even though New York is a big crisis center, I think that the shutdown is affecting the whole country.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We might have more emails that are coming in about deaths and needs.
We know people. We know people who are ill and dying.
So our emotional crisis is on a higher level, but everybody's on the same physical shutdown.
Functional.
Not thinking 10 times a day, like, is it a good time to go to the store now? Will I wait outside for an hour and a half? Do I really need to go out? Everybody's dealing with
I have a mild to moderate cough right now. I'm fairly certain I get it every spring. I haven't set foot in any public place for 2 weeks because I don't want to scare people.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's corona or not.
Right. But Ali said it's a sin now. Like, when did you think that having allergies would be a sin in public? Now, you're really scared to clear your throat in public.
Yes, like it's a hazard to society. Yes, and we have to play by those rules. We have no choice.
Right.
Yes.
So
exactly. So people have a lot more leeway and authority and options than they think. Because, if you're not someone who I know you've dabbled in the concept of homeschooling, but I don't think you've actually researched the logistics of what needs to be done, right?
I don't know about it.
If tomorrow you needed to homeschool your child, the amount of paperwork you would have to do is so minimal. Maybe I need to do a blog post about that just to let people know, if their version of schooling is not working, here's what you can do to instantly become an official homeschooler, and then just do whatever the heck your child needs, whatever your family needs. If what your child needs is to sit and watch the Magic School Bus episodes and chalk it up to calling it science and language for the next couple of months, I promise they will still get into whatever college they were going to go to.
Right. So I have a few very important questions as you were talking. I'm like, I know that many schools wanted you as a principal because you're a great leader, you're a great educator, you're a great person. You're also the mental health that understands children, humanity, like society. So if you would be a principal now, what would you do in your school?
Such a good question. I actually once wrote up a prospectus at such time that I was actually thinking of being a principal of a startup school. So I had it's maybe 10 pages long of ideas, but obviously that all goes out the window in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. Am I running an elementary school, a high school? How many students are there in the schools? I don't, I haven't even given that any thought because my model of education is so customized and tailor designed at this point for my own children and what they're up to and their learning styles that I've become, that I've learned about over the years. But one thing that I really feel very grateful, and I love to share this with people about, our homeschooling journey is at the beginning, I was, of course, new and a little nervous and insecure. And I didn't know if we would I want to leave ourselves the options to restream our kids back in the regular school system if they wanted to. And in fact, one or two of them did, go back and forth a little bit before they settled on homeschool. So I stuck very rigidly to a schedule and a curriculum and making sure that they were, so to speak, on par with the standardized, even though it's very, very limited standardized, but, with making sure that they were always above grade level, at least at or above grade level. As they got older and they learned to learn and think and enjoy and create more abstractly, and I became more confident and I keep saying I, even though my husband is an equal partner in our home, because I'm the one who runs the schooling. Trust me. And I became more confident in the fact that I was raising these like decent, moral, lovely, socially capable human beings who were bright and creative and had their own areas of interest. It became less important to me to make sure to cross every T and dot every I as far as like covering units that I know everybody forgets. So I once had a school principal say to me like, "Oh, do you give your kids a lot of tests?" And I said, "No, I almost never give tests." He's like, "Well, how do you know what they're going to remember?" I said, "How do you know what your students are going to remember? You just have them like vomit it back onto a test to quantify it the day before they start forgetting it." But I'm like, I asked the principal, I'm like, "You're a smart guy. How many of the finals that are given at the end of your school year do you think you could do well on?"
Right, exactly.
Right? There's so much minutia that we ask kids to memorize for no real reason, right? Just to keep them busy, right? Rather, I would let them, my children have had the opportunity to do so much more in terms of travel and the arts and physical activity. I have a daughter that gets to take ballet 3 times a week. I have a daughter that was a 2-time Prix d'Honneur Tanakh national finalist. That's the International Bible Contest. They've super specialized in areas of interest, whether it's intellectual interest or artistic or kinesthetic, that matter to them. So we do keep up a basic modicum of the minimal standards. It's a little more than the minimal standards of what of other children their age are learning. But you have so much more flexibility and time and opportunity to pursue interests and endeavors that the children are actually motivated to do. So when you mentioned before, like, "Oh, well, you're lucky that your kids they like to learn." Like, it's true. I am lucky that my kids like to learn. I also have feel good that we created an environment where learning is enjoyable rather than oppressive. But I also not all of my kids always loved reading. I have one kid who only recently discovered the joy of reading for fun. She always did her reading that was necessary, but she's much more of a movement oriented kid and much more of an auditory and visual learner than a reader. Now she just found some fiction that got her excited and she's like opened up a whole new world. But here's the thing. I actually stopped doing vocabulary lessons with my children. You know why? Because I'm a reasonably eloquent person. I talk to my children. That's how they pick up vocabulary. And the SAT words that they were going to learn from vocabulary books, A, most of the people don't remember them anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. And B, actually, those SAT words are what made me lose friends in high school because I was some obnoxious 16-year-old using words that nobody understood anyway.
You were the walking thesaurus.
They literally used to call me that. And it becomes like socially compromising. It's a point of diminishing returns. So when I have to write an academic paper and, sound a little pretentious and bombastic, I can know how to pull out all those polysyllabic terms. But in real life, you don't need to talk like that. You don't even need to write like that. You just need to be being emotionally intelligent and socially expressive and self-aware. It's so much more valuable than, like I said in that poem, than most of what they're going to learn in school. And so, I can go on and on about this, but I know that you're on the same page because you're a very spiritual person and very, and as much as I love and value intellectual pursuits and education, I think that the psychological and the spiritual and the interpersonal is so much more important. So you'll get it. They'll get the bio and the chem and the physics and the geometry and the algebra and the trig. We'll do a certain amount of that because, we have to just be culturally literate, launch people into the world. They should be able to go to college. My daughter, who was 16, graduated high school and started college at 16. They can do this. You don't have to work that hard to be able to do these things. But I love knowing that we can create so much time and space and energy for them to really pursue things that are so much more important in the grand scheme of things.
That's why I loved your poem because it really explained it so beautifully. What's really important.
Thank you.
And in life, what you wrote in the poem is really what's important. Really, what we really need to show up in life and educate our children about these things. And learning how to get through a crisis is a huge part of education, of
Stuff
teaching.
happens in life, right? I mean, who goes through life without any challenge? No one, right?
100%. And also the list of priorities and our jobs should be our priorities. And it doesn't mean that we don't care about school. It means that we just know what is important for now. And hopefully this is going to end soon. And hopefully we'll all go back to normal and then we'll reassess things. But we have to know what comes before what. And I so appreciate that you put it into, because we're with scrambled eggs in our mind now. What should we do first? What should we do first? And we're so overwhelmed. And some parents that really value education are freaking out.
They're scrambling.
Are our kids going to fall behind? Are they going to be able to go to high school? I
literally have a blog post called "Don't Worry About Your Kids Falling Behind."
Oh, really?
Yes. I'm going to send you all the links because I think that you and your audience who is asking these questions, it's interesting. I used to write about 1 or 2 blog posts a month, and I like writing, but everything's about a balance. Once this crisis hit, I've been putting out like 2 or 3 a week because I just have so much to say on this, and I see people are starving for encouragement and guidance and help because it's so new. And so this "Don't Worry About Your Kids Falling Behind" post, I don't want to read out the whole thing because you can just put it on your, but that's the gist of it. The gist of it is people overestimate how much is really covered in school in a way that can't be made up easily.
Especially on Zoom, they're not falling behind.
They're not. Yeah, exactly. What's going on Zoom is not education. This is not real schooling. I mean, it's better than nothing for some people, but it's worse than nothing for others. I made a list. I gave a talk this morning and I made a list of the find your why, Simon Sinek type of thing. It's everybody talks about why we. So if you look at the purpose of education, right? Very little of it has to do with downloading bites of trivia into children. It's a much bigger picture. What we want to give our children is values, moral decency, character, right? A vision, how to think critically and ask questions, how they want to show up in life, right? Cultural literacy, just to have a basic knowledge to be able to have conversations, right? Talk about politics with your kids the way you talk about it with your friends, and then they'll know politics. They don't need more than that, right? Or if you don't talk about politics, then don't. I don't know anything about sports. I don't feel like an uneducated person. It just happens not to be an area of interest of mine. Right? Pragmatics and marketability. Okay. So the consumer math and basic nutrition and basic reading skills, they all have that by 6th or 7th grade anyway. They're not going to miss it out on it just because of this couple of months, right? Creativity, the pleasure of discovering the world, the ability to participate and contribute to the world, and productivity, learning how to use time and mind space, right? Mm-hmm. Social skills, life skills, emotional regulation, health, mental health. These are the values that really matter. And these are the things that we don't need to do research in order to give over to our kids, because as well-adjusted, thought-out adults, we know this stuff. We can just share it with them as we go along. This is why as a homeschooler, I don't do a whole lot of preparation, because I'm not looking to say to my kids, you're a blank slate and I'm a wealth of knowledge. Let me teach you things. I'm looking to say, hey, we're just humans traveling this earth together. Let's learn together. Let me teach them how to learn. Let me teach them how to fish so they can learn how to garner their own information, right? I want them to be lifelong learners. So let's give them the skills to self-educate. And very often what they learn, in school and out of school is not because somebody spat it into their face, but because someone gave them the book, the website, the tools, the understanding of how to go about extracting information from the rich, big, wide world in front of them. So it's a lot easier than people think it is.
I want to touch upon educators that are forced now to, in a way, abandon their needs of their families to show up for our families. And my heart bleeds for them because they're told that this is what they have to do. They have to keep their job. No one wants to lose their job in a very uncertain time. They have to follow rules. And they're, in a way, they also have children that I need to be on Zoom calls. I'm fortunate enough that I can reschedule my hours of my
You have flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah. But when someone is telling a teacher, show up at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or 9:30, and their child, their 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old needs.
It's impossible. Yeah.
So how can we comfort them? I feel like everybody is really drowning in the unknown and trying so hard and getting nowhere. We're all giving 200% and going back 500% in my mental health. I know that in my mental health, just in the last 2 days, And thank God Ari sees it and he knows how hard I work.
He knows how to catch you when you're falling.
And he knows to say, okay, you don't do this, I'll do it. I'll take over. But not everybody is aware like that. And not everybody knows that they're struggling with mental health to be aware.
Right. Okay. So you're asking a lot of different things. Let's start with the teachers.
I went with the teachers. I'm going to the teachers. What are we going to tell
the teachers has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So I would imagine and I would hope that the people, the educators and the administrators who are running schools are human. And that if a teacher comes along and says, listen, I understand what you're asking me to do and why you're asking me to do it, but it's not going to work for me, then they can either figure out a way to help that teacher get childcare, get extra help, or adjust the schedule that's going to make it better for the teacher. If not, then you're dealing with anyone else in a situation that has an employer that's being unreasonable. And then they have a difficult choice to make of either, like what I had to do, do I want to play hardball or do I want to walk away or, and that's the case, when I was a teacher, one of the reasons I left teaching was I didn't like the feeling of having an institution to answer to and feeling like at the mercy of like every negotiation. Well, do I want to risk losing my job if I can't go on this, weekend program retreat with them? Or if I, parent teacher conferences is the same night as a wedding I really need to be at, or, so there are always going to be conflicts. This is a particularly difficult conflict. I would imagine that any decent human being running a school would figure out some kind of creative solution for teachers who are coming to them respectfully and collaboratively. And if not, then, I don't really have like a pat answer for them. Then they have to make a tough choice. Do I want to just say, well, I'm sorry if you fire me, you fire me? Or do they want to just say, I'm going to have to neglect my children a little bit so I can keep my job, which a lot of people are doing, and children are pretty resilient, other than like really egregious cases of abuse or neglect. If you ignore your kids a little bit while you're working, they're usually going to be okay as long as they're safe. So, there are no simple solutions, but I think like with any relationship, where we're talking about marriage or parenting, friends and employers and coworkers, communication is key. If you can clearly and collaboratively and in a respectful way come along and say, here's the problem, here's my proposed solution, here's my request, here's what I need, then a reasonable person will come back to you with, okay, let's work on this. Let's figure out something together. Right. And an unreasonable person or an unworkable situation, then you have a tough choice to make, so I think, I wish there was like a clear formula, but as of now, I don't know of one.
I want to I just want to add to that just as a parent and as somebody that was a daughter of an educator, I want to just ask my audience to don't let your frustration out on the teachers. The teachers are trying above and beyond. They're working more hours now than ever. They have to write a new schedule. They need to write new material to give over Zoom because whatever they're giving
technology.
The classes, they have to give emails, long emails and preparation and sheets and all that. It's not their fault. Yeah. Please thank them and give them gratitude for what they're trying and go to the people above them and ask what Elisheva said, ask, don't blame, because it's new for everyone. So just like I needed to say that because I have such a warm...
You empathize.
I really empathize as a parent, as a teacher, like they're trying their best.
Yes, I do too. And, it's a delicate balance. You said this before we started recording, but you're so self-aware, emotionally. And you were saying like, I'm vacillating between frustration and empathy when it comes to the schools and the teachers and the administrators, because I so empathize with how difficult this is for them. At the same time, I feel my child's pain and frustration at being in my pain and your own. Right.
Yeah.
So I remember once one of my kids had a teacher who was being really, really tough on the kids. A lot of yelling, a lot of blaming, a lot of just like really unkind. And the kids were little. And I was talking to my friend, and my friend said something like, she's pregnant, this teacher. She might be having a tough pregnancy. And I said, my heart goes out to her. It really does. But that doesn't obligate me to tolerate, abusive teaching methods. So if she's not up to teaching, we're going to have to figure out something else. Maybe she needs an assistant in the room. Maybe she needs to take a leave of absence. Maybe I need to just switch my kids out of the class. But, you can have I can be not judging the teacher that's struggling and also protect my child from the pathology of what's going on in the situation. And that I think is, the horizon of healthy, parent-teacher relationship.
Or any relationship, any abusive or non-okay relationship.
Right.
It should be
even not as far as abusive. If it's just not functioning well, if it's not working well, to be able to say, I appreciate you. I value what you're doing. I am not judging you. At the same time, it's my job as a parent to advocate and problem solve on behalf of my child or my family. And let's figure this out together. If we can figure it out together, beautiful. And if we can't, then I'll figure it out myself. No hard feelings.
What do you think the parent body wants more? the education, like that give us more or give us less? What do you think is, because I believe that the administration is listening to the parent body.
I think a lot of them are. That's, I think, another reason why I feel so bad for them, that I don't think they're getting a clear consensus. You know, I'm hearing both. I'm hearing parents who say they live for that a couple of hours a day that the kids finally get set up on that Zoom call and are occupied. And then I have other parents who are like, I wish they would just get rid of the Zoom calls altogether. So I haven't done a survey, and I'm not like very involved the way administrators are, and I'm not hearing that kind of feedback. And I also feel like I'm more likely to hear from people who are dissatisfied than from people who are doing well with it, because, the squeaky wheel makes, and I'm a therapist. Nobody calls me to say, just want to let you know everything's going great, I mean, they sometimes do actually, but it's only after they've come to deal with the problem. That's the nature of everything. Right. So, so I would imagine that there are a nice number of people who appreciate it, which is why I think my original suggestion of work with the teachers, say whoever can, produce and create content and do these Zoom calls and whatever, amazing, wonderful, please continue doing them. And then collaborate with parents and say, whichever families are capable of enjoying this content that we're creating, please do go ahead, enjoy them, keep up with it. We're sending extra, we're sending worksheets, enrichment, and just let it happen along a sliding scale. Whoever can produce should produce. And if you can't, then we understand. Whoever can participate should do so. And if you can't, then we understand. Like just sort of like a flexible spectrum of participation, both on the part of parents and families, I think would be ideal. Just let people do, in every case, let people do as best as they can and trust them that they are, because this is hard times. And we don't know, there's no way to enforce whether people are cutting corners or not. Just like in real life, you never really know if people are cutting corners or not.
I want to share something that happened yesterday, and it was such a wake-up call for me. So yesterday was the second day of homeschooling. Before Passover, I told my kids only the older ones are allowed to attend. Allowed. It wasn't even enough. You are allowed to attend if you can figure it out alone. You are not allowed to ask me how to, because I'm not going to help you.
I'm not available.
I'm off the grid until after Passover. I needed to stay healthy. I was
too busy.
I was sick with Corona. I was busy healing.
I was sick. Wow.
Yeah. I was busy keeping everybody afloat and just my mental health. And so I told them until after Passover, we're not speaking about homeschool. Javi is in high school. She's really pressured. They're giving her a lot of pressure on, you must show up. There's attendance. You have to be in uniform. You have to give in your assignment. You have to. Even though no regions do last year's regions, all kinds of silly things. And she was feeling the pressure. And she's like, I have to do well. I said, Javi, whatever will be, and we'll deal with it later. Your pressure now is not going to take you far in life. It's not. Well, you'll do your best. You're a great student. You're going to try your best. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. So we were second day into homeschooling, and Kate, 6-year-old, has a meltdown. I hate it. I'm not going on. And I was shocked. I thought she calls her friend on the phone, on a real phone, not on a cell phone, to talk to them. She doesn't see them. She just talks to them. And I thought this will be like,
she's so auditory, it could work.
Yeah, I thought she would love it. She hated it. She said, it's noisy. I can't hear. It's slow. She's like, it's boring. It's not fun. She had a meltdown. So I said, okay, so don't do it. I said, don't do it. She took
not worth it.
Nachaliel was painting. He paints in the afternoon. She started painting. She felt, and then comes the next session, like 2:00. And Ari, my husband's like, oh, Tifer, it's time. And she's like, no, I'm not going. I said, let her go. He said, and I'm not shaming him. I'm really not shaming him, but I think that this is what a lot of people are thinking. And that's why I'm bringing it up. He said, well, I'm paying for tuition. I want her to go to school. Yeah. And I said, no, Ari, this is not
this is not school. Yeah.
I said, first of all, just because you're paying for it doesn't mean that you're getting
torture a child.
And I reminded him, that when my kids were little, I went to Disneyland, and he refused to come with me. I went with my closest friend to Disneyland with Nachaliel and Javi. I think Javi was 2 or 3 and Nachaliel was 6 or 7. And it was my first time to Disneyland. Or Disney World, I don't remember, the one in Florida, whichever it is. And I was like, I'll stay with the baby at home. He's like, Disney World is not a fun place for children. I am not going. I said, I know what you're talking about. It's the funnest place in the world. This is what they market. Fine. I go to Disney World. I hate it. Wait. We go to, it's a first experience. We're waking up. Now my friend lived in Disney. Since she's 0, she goes every year. That's her thing. Fine. So she knew the whole tricks and games. And we go to Disney and she tells me we have to go. We have early admission because we bought the 3-day pass, and we were going to see the 12:00 in the afternoon parade. And she's like, and I have VIP tickets.
Gotta milk it.
Yes. And I remember Nachaliel, this is the first day. Nachaliel was like, Mommy, I'm going home. I said, what do you mean you're going home? He said, I'm going home. I'm going back to the hotel. I said, Nachaliel, we're right about to start this amazing parade. We came here early to get this amazing. He's like, I'm leaving. And if you don't come with me, I'm going alone. No, he was 5 or 6, young.
He's not going alone, right?
and I'm like, and he was determined. He's like, I'm leaving. I said, you're in Disneyland. Don't you want to? And he's like, and he had a meltdown and I had to leave. And I called Ari and I said, Ari, what am I going to do? I spent $1,000 on tickets. I'm taking him back tomorrow. He's like, no. You tortured your child. You tortured him enough for 5 hours in the morning. You don't, just because you paid doesn't mean you have to continue the torture. And I reminded him, I said, it's like Disneyland. Just because we paid for tuition doesn't mean that we have to torture them.
Don't throw good time after bad money. Yes.
And I really believe that a lot of people are struggling. Why I'm bringing this up is because I really believe that a lot of people, especially in the private schools, feel we pay a lot of tuition for many kids.
I want to grab every crumb.
Yeah. So what do we tell the parents like Ari that don't have the Disney story to tell, or that they're not reasonable and fast? Like Ari adjusts very fast to.
He's a very adaptive person. I know he is. Yes. No, he's special that way. Right. Look, okay. So this is something that's coming up a lot. I think it almost like deserves its own talk because it's so complex. Right. You know, one of the things that, the reason that we chose to homeschool had absolutely nothing to do with finances, but we love the relief from not paying tuition. Yeah. And we've been able to travel the world because of it. We couldn't have afforded to do both. But I think that this is very delicate. You know, these schools are incredibly expensive, but nobody's really, to my knowledge, is getting rich from the tuitions. You know, this money goes somewhere. It goes to pay the teachers who are not, they're not paid amazingly. They're making a basic salary. It goes to pay the building mortgage, even though we're not benefiting from these buildings, they still have to get taken care of, right? And so there are expenses that the schools have, even though right now people are not getting the full benefits, that if they want their school to still be in place and the teachers to not be, dying of starvation by September, then they still need to sort of maintain. So look, they're nonprofits. It could be, and I don't know the legalities of this, but it could be that what you could do is arrange with the school, say, listen, can we at least make this a tax deductible donation because we're not really receiving the kind of service that we signed up for this couple of months. And then, at least, make a little bit of money back on it. What some families do, which they do anyway, is they call up the school and they say, times are tough. Can we negotiate a lower tuition fee? And that's always an option in yeshivas, in religious school systems, at least in our communities. And the schools are very open and receptive to having that conversation most of the time. And if you can afford to, but it's just a matter of principle, then what you could chalk it up to is, I know we did that once. One of my kids went to camp. She was miserable there and the camp was mishandling the situation. It wasn't egregious, but they could have helped her more and they didn't. Finally, we ended up having her come home and it was so painful because it was this expensive summer camp. She actually made it a friend that was worth a few $1,000s to have that friend in her life. It really said it's so worth it. We joke about it that it was worth paying the money just to have a friend like that in her life.
That's so beautiful.
But the way I said it to my husband also, and again, we're not looking to waste money, but the way I look at it is like, we sign up for different experiences in our children's lives. Some of them are a bargain. Sometimes you take your kids to a free activity or museum and you look back and you're like, wow, the value we got from that was phenomenal. I would have paid thousands of dollars to have that exposure, to have that, person in their life or whatever. And then there are times that we shell out money thinking we're going to get a certain value and it ends up being, like, in retrospect, not really worthwhile. But that's life, like I spend $100 on a dress. Sometimes I wear it to death and it was worth its weight in gold. And sometimes it's like, I never really end up wearing it, but I didn't know. I thought I was going to make use of it, right? It's kind of like that here. If you can afford to, what I would sort of say is, look, it's a nonprofit. It's supporting teachers. It's providing education for the next generation. Look at it as a donation. It's not a donation that you were excited to make, but if you can afford to, not lose sleep over the fact that you lost that money, you were going to pay that money for the fact that kids were being educated. They're not being educated because somebody gypped you. They're not being educated because of a world crisis. So, if you can't afford to, then, or if you feel very strongly about it, then go to the school and negotiate, a reduction in salary or a slow payout, whatever. But it feels like everything comes back to communication, to take an internal reckoning, say, what do I feel? What do I need? What do I need to request? When I have clarity within myself and my partner, I go and I speak to the school and I say, okay, this is where we're holding. This is what we're feeling. This is what we need from you. Right.
I love that answer. Really, like, you saw me smiling the whole time because it was.
You smile a lot.
But I was like, it gave me such, how do you say Yeshuvadat?
Serenity?
I don't know.
Resolution, maybe. Yeah.
Clarity of mind. Yeah. Like, it was, and I feel like a lot of people are thinking the same way. Like, and
this is not what I was paying for. Yeah.
And especially my 2-year-old, I feel like I chose an expensive school because I needed
specifically because you wanted it.
Because he's 2 and I needed very good babysitting while I am going out to work. Now I have to babysit or hire a babysitter. And what now? And
that might be different. That might be different.
I don't fault them. I don't fault them. But it's really a crisis. Like, what do I do? Do I double dip and do I pay double for my child? And it's frustrating. And like, we don't know what the right thing. And I think like what's going on is that we have morals and we're like very, we're faced hard into, on the spot understanding what's our core value.
What's the right thing to do here? Yeah. Like it's not always clear cut.
Yeah.
You want to get something so nice. I have a housekeeper that comes for a few hours a day and helps me with housework. And she told me at a certain point before, everything got really bad, but when it was totally fine that she said that, she's like, I don't feel like I should be coming now. And I said, I completely understand. I spoke to my husband and I said, and we're prepared to pay you for the time that you're not here because I know you rely on this income and it's not your fault that you can't work here. So wait, she messaged me back. This woman who relies on, like minimum wage kind of work, she texts me back. She says, I don't feel right taking money if I'm not coming to work.
Wow.
How special is that? And we've had this conversation before, like when I've traveled or when she hasn't been feeling well. I mean, what a special person that she's not a wealthy woman, and, and usually we work out something in between. I generally pay her if we're away or if I tell her I don't need her to come. But and I gave her a little extra before on the last day when she was here. And if, hopefully if or when she comes back, I'll give her a little more. But it was such a wonderful conversation because each one of us was thinking like, I want to do right by the other. It's a trust-based relationship. We both value each other and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. And it would be nice if, the schools and parents have that kind of like symbiotic respect to sort of say, listen, we understand you still have expenses that need to get taken care of. I'm not, we're not going to leave you high and dry. And if schools could reach out to families and say, we understand if times are tough and you can't necessarily meet the tuition contract that you thought you could meet in September, we're open to negotiations, to conversations.
Right. Yeah. Simon Sinek was on a live talk the other day. I don't even remember where it was, but I try to really gravitate to everything he talks.
He's so nice to listen to.
Yeah. And he was saying it's easy to be a leader when everything is working out well.
Oh, yes.
And it's really hard to step into the uncomfortable part of leadership when things are falling apart and you really have to make tough decisions. And he said the number one thing you have to do is listen to the people in your tribe. That's a leader. Listen. And that's what you were saying before. Listen, ask, communicate. And I think the big takeaway from our conversation is communicate with your kids, communicate with your spouse, communicate with the teachers, communicate with the administration.
Respectfully and
with yourself. Yes. Yourself. Ask yourself questions. Go into silence and say, what's working for me? What's not working? Yeah. And
journal, really, meditate, write it up. Yes.
Yeah. And it's okay to not follow the tribe that seems to be working okay for them. And if you're falling under this pressure,
it's not just you. It's so many people that are feeling the same way. Yeah.
And when I posted that question yesterday, so many words were, I fail, I fail, I fail, I fail. I said, listen, guys, we are not failing at anything. We are trying our best. Please take failure out of our vocabulary now. We're not failing.
I'm trying to remember who said this quote, but I love it. It said, I never fail. I either win or I learn something. Right?
Is it Brene Brown? No.
I thought it was Thomas Edison, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, maybe. I remember hearing, you can look it up. You can Google it. But like the fact that people are leaving a full day of trying so hard and thinking that they're failures is showing that the leadership is failing. You know what? I'm going to wrap up now. Because Elisheva gave us so much content and so much clarity and so much reassuring that we're going to be okay. Education will be okay. Our kids will be okay as long as we give them their emotional support, their space, their time, their kindness, teach them empathy, teach them how to listen to themselves, teach them how to be empathetic to somebody else. That's true education. And the rest will pick up after this pandemic. I want to thank Elisheva. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for your education, for your clarity, for your peace of mind you gave me and others. For the many smiles that I was smiling through this podcast. And I'm going to put all the links to her beautiful blog on the show notes. I really can't thank you enough, Elisheva, for helping us through this. And my last question for Elisheva is, maybe, do you think that a lot of people will start homeschooling after this and they will realize that maybe homeschooling is the answer? I told Ari before Passover that I'm wondering if in like 20 years, people will say, well, when we were in school, we did X, Y, and Z, but then there was this COVID-19 that came and schools fell apart and we started homeschooling. And that's how the system education collapsed. I was just wondering about that.
Yes, I absolutely do think that we're going to see an uptick, an increase in the number of families that begin homeschooling. It happens to be the case that there have been more and more families joining the ranks of homeschooling families over the last number of years. Last I checked, there were about 2 million homeschooled kids throughout the United States, and the number was growing every year for a lot of different reasons, mostly ideological, I think. But now that we're seeing so many families getting a taste of this type of educating that they just really wouldn't, it wasn't even on their radar. It wasn't something that they were ever considering. It wasn't something they ever thought that would be an option for their family. Maybe they didn't think they were up to the task. Maybe they didn't think their kids would really benefit from it. But obviously, there are a lot of families that are struggling, and we're not minimizing that. We talked about that. But at the same time, I know for a fact that there are families who are like, wow, I never realized how great this could be because I'm getting the phone calls and the emails and the questions about it. So, ultimately, every set of parents needs to do what they feel is going to be the best fit for their family. But sometimes we don't know all our options until we've had an opportunity to try them. So, I hope that this really just opened doors for the families for whom this could be helpful. Okay. So you also had asked me to mention other programs that we have. So I have a digital course called Sacred Not Secret, a religious family's guide to healthy, holy sexuality education. That is not only part of my homeschool curriculum, but it's something that I think should be part of everybody's curriculum at home, whether they homeschool or not. I think that we really do need to do a better job for the next generation, teaching them about their bodies and relationships and helping prepare them for healthier adult sexual relationships. So that course is available on my website. It's called Sacred Not Secret. I'm also opening a support group, a virtual support group for this last month or so for moms during the coronavirus quarantine time. And it's going to be a low-cost virtual support group just to help moms who might be somewhat overwhelmed with these responsibilities. And they can send me an email, speaktosomeone@gmail.com, to hear more about the support group. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me here. I really hope this was helpful and useful. Remember, breathe, take care of yourself, take care of your children, see what they need, ask them what they need. Be grateful to the system that is trying. Everybody is trying. There's no right or wrong for everyone. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to be truthful to ourselves. We have to look inside ourselves, and we have to do what works for us in order to get through this specific situation that's new to everyone, new to everybody. And don't forget to be grateful. Don't be angry. Be grateful and ask for what you need. Don't be angry. Thank you for joining us here today. And I hope we can have another episode in a few months, wrapping up everybody's thoughts on this, how they got through it, how homeschooling adjustment went for them. Bye till next time.
Thank you for joining us and taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button so you can hear further episodes. If you are listening to us on iTunes, please leave feedback and ratings below. Let us know if there's any topic that you would like to hear from us in the future. Bye till next time.